Simon, you are here at the Innovate Zero conference, and we've just been talking about how fundamental digitalization is on our route to net zero. Can you just tell us a bit more?
I completely agree. I think one of the interesting things is digitalization means so many things to so many people. I think it often gets confused and people really misunderstand it. Sometimes people just think it's about giving technology to individual consumers, roll out the latest version of Zoom or Teams and you've got it. But we're looking much more fundamental about the enablers of how it can help transform the system as a whole. Now, my view is if we can't digitalize the energy system, we won't be able to achieve and do all these great things that are going to be needed as part of the Clean Power 2030 vision of understanding better scenario planning, modeling the future, understanding where we can make our best investments. And all of that requiring a huge amount of data and information and digitalization. So if we can unlock this, if we can address it, if we can tackle it in the right way, as many of the speakers have been talking about here, we can allow ourselves to get to that journey at a much more realistic way.
And how confident do you feel that we are on that journey to laying this foundation stone?
I think there's a lot of agendas happening at the moment, programs, initiatives across the sector, which are really positive, and a lot of people are looking in different areas. But I think the key area that we need to do a lot more focus on is really unlocking the kind of key building block around all this digitalization, which is cross-sector or cross-industry interoperability. And what I mean by that is how we can get every single actor and individual within the market sharing data together around a certain use case or certain purpose to allow us to progress and move forward. And now that particular area is where we have a lot of attention, a lot of interest, but I don't think we're doing as much focus and attention as a sector as we could do.
So what do you think needs to be done? What more would you like to see to unlock that?
So there's a number of really interesting programs, particularly one at the moment that Ofgem are very heavily sponsoring, and so are DESNZ, called the Data Sharing Infrastructure. And what that's looking to do is create a secure and resilient method of sharing data at scale across the entire energy system. If we get that cracked, if we get that in place, and we do that in a timely manner, way in advance of 2030, then we'll be able to unlock and answer a load of use cases that help contribute to that journey. Things like system planning, investment planning, operational resilience. But if we can't address that fundamentally and get all the stakeholders collaborating on it together, I think we're going to have a real challenge.
How feasible is it to unlock that well in advance of 2030? Because really we're not very far from 2030 as many of us here are kind of really alive to. How confident do you feel?
I feel really confident about it, mainly because we're seeing a really good momentum in industry. I think the key thing will be for all actors within the sector who are kind of in this space to really look at it through a lens of collaborating on the rules, competing on the game. Yeah. And what I mean by that is there's some fundamentals around this that if we can get right as industry, and those are the rules, then industry as a whole can compete on the resulting game based on our own commercial interests and drivers. But if the rules aren't in place and we're not collaborating on those in a timely manner, I think it's going to be really difficult.
I love that, collaborating on the rules, competing on the game. Now, on this point around the digital twin, you Arup are working on this, you specifically are working on this. Can you actually just unpack that for our viewers? What does that mean? What are you guys doing and how important is it?
It's really important. And I think digital twins is an interesting word. It means many things to many people. At its simplest form, it's just about connecting physical and digital assets together. Now, at an asset level, an individual wind turbine, an individual power station, that's a fantastically useful thing to do. You can answer use cases that owner-operator might be interested in. But the real power comes when we start to connect digital twins across the entire energy sector together. Now that connection of digital twins enables an ecosystem effect, enables you to share information and data and whatever understanding between the various assets to answer system-level challenges.
Give us an example of the two assets that would be twinned.
So for example, if you look at the energy value chain at the moment, transmission, distribution, generation, consumer, or generation, transmission, distribution, consumer, at the moment every single one of those parts of our energy value chain is a different legal entity, different owner operator, will most naturally have their own digital twins doing things within their own organizational boundary. So transmission, they might be modeling their transmission system, understanding its resilience, how it would operate within certain conditions. Generation, they might be forecasting kind of how they might generate on a certain time of day, what happens if they turn on or off different parameters. And then consumers, obviously they've got a lot of consumer behavior trying to model, trying to understand. Now, if we look at each of these parts of the value chain in isolation, we're never able to answer the system level question. But if you were to connect all of those various digital twins together, just like the physical energy system's connected, but connected digitally, you could answer a question across the entire sector. Now that's the work we've been looking at and supporting for a long time at Arup, how you can create that connectivity across digital twins within the energy sector. And without it, I think fundamentally it's going to be really hard for us to get to net zero.
And do you feel that it's the kind of commercial sensitivity and people sort of hoarding their own data that's part of the problem, or where are the barriers here?
Yeah, so it's interesting because when you start talking about this as a conversation, it's quite easy to go quite technical, and most of the focus when people talk about it is on the technology. What's the hardware you need, what's the software, what's the data models, etc. But I'd put to you that it's not really a technology problem at all. It's much more of a socio-technical problem. And that socio side, the policy, the regulatory, the legal, the skills is really where the focus is. So if we can get people collaborating on the rules, competing on the game, kind of looking at how we can get the fundamentals in place, what are the governance models, what are the processes we need, what are the business processes we need to reimagine, then the technology can kind of follow in parallel, but that's how we get to address the problem. So are we on track? How can we make fast progress? I think it's spending less focus on the technology, more on the socio side, and really understanding how we can get everyone to come together to solve this.